To talk about the downfall of Marlon Brando feels right in some ways, but it's also really misleading. The word downfall makes it sound like a simple, straight line downward, a neat ending to a stellar career. But the truth about Brando, just like the man himself, was messy and complicated. His life was a swirling storm of pure genius, clashing with self-sabotage, filled with amazing acting triumphs and deep personal pain. His story is proof that a legacy can be just as difficult and complex as it is famous. To understand why people talk about a downfall, you have to remember how incredibly high he flew first. In the 1950s, Marlon Brando exploded onto the scene, first on the stage and then in the movie A Streetcar Named Desire, playing Stanley Kowalski. Brando didn't just play a role, he breathed untamed, visceral life into his characters, completely changing what acting meant. Movies like On the Waterfront, Viva Zapata, and The Wild One cemented his status as the face of method acting. He was the ultimate anti-hero before that was even a popular term, a symbol of rebellion and pure authenticity. Critics loved him, and awards were constantly streaming in. He redefined masculinity on screen, making a man's vulnerability just as compelling as his strength. This was Brando at his absolute peak, a true giant of his profession. But even while he was ruling the film world, there were quiet rumors. People sensed a restless soul, a mind that felt smarter than Hollywood, and a temper that hated being told what to do. The narrative really starts to change around the mid-1960s. The unstoppable force began to show cracks, and what people started calling his downfall began its slow, confusing journey. One of the biggest forces pushing this change was simply money. His one attempt at directing, One-Eyed Jacks, was a passion project that took years and cost a massive amount. Though critics would later appreciate it, at the time it was a financial disaster. That massive failure, combined with huge alimony payments, legal bills, and the cost of supporting his growing family, put a crushing financial weight on Brando's shoulders. This financial stress, many believe, forced him to start accepting roles in films that paid him huge amounts of cash, but offered absolutely no artistic challenge. The man who had revolutionized acting was now seen as just doing it for the paycheck, sometimes looking bored or totally detached. Along with the money troubles, Brando's reputation for being difficult on set began to stick. The stories were everywhere. He'd show up incredibly late, completely unprepared, refusing to memorize his lines. He often demanded to have cue cards hidden all over the set, forcing the crew to become his human teleprompter. He fought with directors and demanded script changes. It's hard to say if this was a deliberate middle finger to the Hollywood system, a result of his own personal struggles, or just growing apathy. Whatever the reason, it alienated most of the industry. Productions got huge and slow, schedules dragged on for ages, and budgets went through the roof. Hiring Brando became a major gamble for producers, even if his name alone was still a huge draw. Then there was the very public change in his body. The iconic chiseled face and physique of his youth gave way to significant weight gain. While an actor's look shouldn't matter as much as their talent, in the harsh, visual world of Hollywood, this became a constant topic of cruel discussion. It unfortunately began to overshadow his actual performances and reinforce the idea that he was a man who had lost control, both in his career and in his private life. Beyond the professional sphere, Brando's personal life was a constant source of struggle and tragedy. His romantic relationships were often turbulent, his family life incredibly complicated. These private struggles absolutely spilled over into his work ethic, fueling his unpredictable temper and making him more and more reclusive. He seemed to look at Hollywood with increasing disgust, an attitude that probably fueled his perceived lack of effort on the projects he took. By the early 1970s, many thought Brando's career was over, a series of forgettable roles, broken up by only faint memories of his former brilliance. Then came the miracle, a complete, phoenix-like rise from the ashes that he had made for himself. This was The Godfather in 1972. As Vito Corleone, he delivered one of the most iconic, completely transforming performances in history, not only winning him an Oscar, but securing his place in film history for a whole new generation. It was a shocking reminder of his absolute power, proving that even when he seemed lost, the genius inside him could still catch fire. This was followed by another raw, controversial performance in Last Tango in Paris, further showing the world that the flame had not gone out. However, even these massive victories couldn't fully change his course. Apocalypse Now, released in 1979, was a masterpiece, but it came with notorious stories about Brando's behavior on set.
His refusal to learn the script, and director Francis Ford Coppola's monumental struggle to get the performance out of him.
Yet the final portrayal of Colonel Kurtz is still hauntingly unforgettable. A mesmerizing and terrifying study of madness, delivered with that trademark Brando intensity, even if it was achieved by non-traditional means. In his later years, Brando became a more mysterious figure in movies. He took small roles, often just cameos, for massive, astronomical sums of money, such as his brief appearance as Jor-El in the 1978 Superman movie, which earned him a record-breaking paycheck. Movies like Don Juan DeMarco in 1995 offered brief glimpses of his reflective, charming side. But these appearances were few and far between, almost legendary in their rarity. He became an icon revered more for his amazing past and the mystique of his reclusiveness than for a continuous stream of challenging work.
So was it truly a downfall? Maybe it's better described as a deep, profound shift, a confusing transformation.
It was a time when the limitless potential of a revolutionary artist fought a constant war with his personal pain, financial worries, and a deep, soul-level disillusionment with the very industry that had made him a legend. Brando's downfall wasn't a loss of talent. It was the world's perception that he was wasting it. An unpredictable, erratic dance between commitment and total indifference. Ultimately, Brando's career is a powerful example of the often destructive point where supreme genius collides with personal fragility. He broke all the rules, revolutionized acting forever, and left an undeniable mark on cinematic history, not in spite of the complexities of his later career, but in many ways because of them. His story isn't just one of decline, it's one of enduring brilliance, a man whose light, even when dimmed, continued to cast a massive, unforgettable shadow.